This is She Who Speaks Shadows, and I have a terrifying testimony I came across online. It comes from Reddit user Raised by Spirits, who shared their terrifying encounters with something far darker than a ghost. This is their experience. It all started when I was about 5 or 6 years old. Me and my brother and my father had just moved into a 3-story house. There were 2 apartments on each floor. The place was over 100 years old, but well renovated. Right across the street was my new school, and behind us was a beautiful park. It seemed like the perfect place to grow up. But I noticed things, shadows in the corners of my eyes. At first, I thought it was just my vision playing tricks on me. That went on for nearly 10 years, before I realized it wasn't normal at all. As a child, I had intense fear of the dark. For some reason, I always imagined that if I opened my eyes at night, Batman would be standing there waiting to kill me. Looking back now, Batman was a tall black figure, and that image is going to matter later. I was also dealing with depression and insomnia from a very young age. Thanks to family problems, that part is important too. By the time I was 12, things got worse. My depression deepened. I began cutting myself. My insomnia became unbearable. After high school, when I was just 15, my sleep cycle was ruined beyond repair. I was awake at night, sleeping during the day, and sometimes not sleeping at all. That's when the strange things started to happen. Objects would vanish, only to reappear months later. Things fell off shelves with no explanation. Odd but harmless, at least at first. Then came the voices. I'd hear my father or my brother calling my name, yelling it, whispering it. But when I checked, they weren't home, or they were asleep. Soon it escalated. I heard gurgling in the living room, like someone choking to death. Strange music that would start softly in the corner of my room, grow louder, then fade away. Knocks on the walls, always 3 times. And the worst of all, the screeches. Demonic screams that seemed to come from everywhere. Footsteps thundered in the attic above us. Sometimes it sounded like furniture was being thrown around. Entire closets crashing to the floor. By then I knew this wasn't just my imagination. The house was haunted, but I didn't know what it was. Not yet. My neighbor Natasha and her brother Peter had already experienced the same presence years before I moved in. Their guest room was where it started. The energy there was so heavy, I could barely step inside. It felt like the air was crushing me, pressing down, suffocating me. That same feeling followed me everywhere, day and night, like someone was standing right behind me, knife in hand, and it never went away. At first I thought it was a ghost, so I tried to communicate with it. That was my biggest mistake, because the moment I gave it attention, things got worse. It attached itself to me, feeding on my fear and feeding on the depression I carried with me every day. One night, I saw a black silhouette of a cat leap off my bed and vanish in midair, dissolving into smoke. I spun around and froze. There it was, a figure, tall, nearly 2 meters, completely black, no face, no hands, no feet. Just a mass of smoke and shadow, staring into my soul with eyes that weren't there. People call him the Shadow Man, the Hat Man, but I know what it was, a demon. After that, the torment escalated. He began shattering light bulbs in around my apartment every 2 days. We were poor, so sometimes I was left in the dark for nights at a time. And that's when he was strongest, between 2 and 4 a.m. That's when the games began. One night, I walked into the kitchen before turning on the lights. The floor felt strange. When I flipped the switch, I froze. The entire floor was crawling with maggots, every inch of it writhing, moving, alive. I panicked, trying to shovel them up, crying as I did. But then they vanished, slipping into the walls, through cracks that didn't even exist. Another night, I spoke to him all day, just talking into the air, hoping he'd hear me. That night, I begged him, "I gave you attention all day. Now please let me sleep." The energy in the room shifted, turned violent, and suddenly something was choking me. Invisible hands wrapped tight around my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't fight back. That was the first and only time he had attacked me physically. I was living in a nightmare and no one believed me. My father brushed it off. My brother stayed quiet, too scared to acknowledge it. I was completely alone and it broke me. I tried to end my life at 16 and I know deep down that he pushed me toward it. Years passed, little things still happened, but never as bad as before. Until 2 years ago, I was in bed, lights off. My boyfriend was already asleep. When I opened my eyes, the living room light turned on by itself, and then it turned off again. He wanted me to know, he wanted me to see, and I knew he was back. I shook violently all night, terrified. So I reached out to a friend, someone who had helped me years before. For months, we planned. Finally, he took a risk, a dangerous one, but it worked. The demon was bound, trapped, and for the first time in years, I feel free. The connection is gone, the shadow is gone, at least for now. I overcame being haunted by a demon. I've only ever told a handful of people about this, but tonight I'm ready to share. It started back in 2009 when I was stationed in Bakwa, Afghanistan. My post sat on top of a hill surrounded by a cemetery. Now they don't bury their dead like we do in the States. Instead, they lay their loved ones directly on the dirt, cover them with piles of rock, and mark the graves with nothing more than sticks and torn clothing so family could find them later. It was 02:45, and I had been standing watch since midnight. Out of nowhere, a rock the size of a golf ball smashed against the bulletproof glass right above my machine gun. I grabbed my night vision and thermal imaging, scanning for anyone trying to mess with me, but there was nothing, just darkness. I told myself to calm down, took a sip of water, and then 10 minutes later, bam! Another rock. This one even bigger. Same exact spot. I called the command center, told them what was happening, and asked them to check their thermal cameras. The reply? Nothing's there. So now that my nerves are firing, my mind is spinning, and I made a decision. If it happened a third time, I was going to fire an illumination round into the sky. Light up the whole damn area and see who or what was out there. 15 minutes passed. Then bang, a rock the size of a tennis ball smashed into the glass. Debris scattered across my machine gun, rocks and pebbles even hitting my chest through my flak jacket. I spun around, ready to fire, but I froze, because there, in the corner of my post, was a towering figure. It had to be at least 11 feet tall. And the second my eyes locked on him, I wasn't able to move. Couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, couldn't even blink. It had complete control of me. He even controlled my fear. His eyes, deep red, glowing in the dark, I could make out the horror of his face. 12 horns total, 3 on each side of his face, 3 jutting from each shoulder. His skin pitted with open craters, bugs crawling out of them and back inside. His arms stretched long, 4 feet at least, ending in enormous clawed hands, fingers sharp, each one like a dagger. His hands alone were the size of my chest. We just stared at each other. Time felt endless. Water streamed from my eyes from the pain of not being able to blink. And then he released me. I blinked, and in that instant, he was gone. I gasped for air, leapt out off the 10-foot post, didn't even use the ladder, and sprinted to the command center. I told only one man what had just happened, and I never looked back at that post again, day or night. For the rest of that deployment, 30 more days, I carried the weight of that encounter in silence. Too afraid to speak of it, too afraid that if I did, he'd come back. And in 2011, he did. 2 years later, 2011, I was back in the States, this time in the Mojave Desert for a training exercise. For several days, I had this feeling. My senses felt sharp, heightened, and this heaviness of sadness would wash over me without warning. I couldn't explain it, but it gnawed at me. The strange part, I hadn't thought of him once. 2 years had passed, and I truly believed that nightmare had been left behind in Afghanistan. But on the third night, I lay down on my cot inside a dome-shaped metal building. Concrete floor, no comfort. I drifted to sleep. And then, it felt like someone had kicked the foot of my cot with all their strength. I shot awake. My watch read 03:01. The building was pitch black. Aside from the faint glow of 2 red exit signs, one Marine was awake, standing watch across the room beneath that dim light. I rolled over to my left, and there he was, pressed into the corner of the building, arms stretched along both walls, legs pulled up to his chest. His eyes glowed red. They locked on me, and once again, my entire body shut down. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't call out to the Marine standing only yards away. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was him, again. That same suffocating fear, that same paralysis, the same eternity of being forced to stare into those burning eyes. And then, he was gone, just like that. My body released, I could breathe again. My pillow was soaked with tears and sweat. I rolled over, face down, and prayed until exhaustion pulled me back into unconsciousness. 4 years later since the first encounter, 2 years since the second. By then, my life was unraveling. Another deployment loomed, and my marriage was collapsing. I was alone, sleeping on the couch downstairs while my wife stayed at the bedroom upstairs. That night, I turned off the lights, left only the glow of the microwave in the kitchen, and drifted to sleep in front of the TV. And then I dreamed. I was back in high school, sitting in the cafeteria, tray of food in front of me. I looked up, smiling, until I saw him. He was standing between the double doors, 60 feet away. The sight of him ripped me out of my dream. I could see my living room, the blinds, the faint glow of the streetlight outside, the ceiling above me, yet I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I was caught between dream and reality. His presence filled both. In the cafeteria, I tried to escape. I stood with my tray, heading for the exit, only for his massive hand to grip my shoulder. His fingers were the size of my entire hand, each tipped with a nail an inch long. The pain was instant. His claws pierced into me, shredding ribs, puncturing my lung, ripping through flesh and muscle until his thumb snapped my spine. The agony forced tears down my face in reality. I tried to breathe in my living room, but no air came out. And then I was dragged, face down across the pavement in the desert, skin tearing from my skull, his hand pressing me down harder and harder, crushing more bone as he walked. He pulled me to a row of Joshua trees, dragging me toward a massive weeping willow. He tossed me at its roots, my body limp and broken, staring up at the sky. The sun rose between the mountains, the air filled with the smell of his burning flesh. He stood tall, arms stretched wide, embracing the light. Before turning his red eyes back on me, I couldn't close mine, couldn't look away. He stepped over me, straddling my body, and screamed as his massive hand drove into the earth, ripping the bottom of the willow tree from the ground. From it poured millions of red and black ants. They swarmed me, crawling under my body, biting into me all at once. The pain was unbearable. My mind screamed at my body to move, but I couldn't. He leaned over me, fangs bared, lowering himself toward my face as I lay there helpless. And then I snapped out of the paralysis. I bolted upright, sprinted to the kitchen, still feeling that phantom bites. I grabbed the sink hose and sprayed myself down, screaming. My wife came running downstairs in a panic, but I couldn't explain. A few months later, I dreamt again. This time, someone guiding me to a black box I'd sent home from my second tour in Afghanistan. Inside it was a smaller box. As I opened it, I woke to a voice whispering one word: salvation. The next morning, I went to my garage, opened the box, and inside was my bandana. The one I wore on every patrol. The one printed with Psalm 91. I tattooed those words onto my chest, and since then, I've never seen him again. Every 2 years, I used to dread his return, but the years have passed, and I believe I'm finally free. This was 3 terrifying encounters with a demon that refused to let him go. Do you think he ever truly escaped? Or is it only a matter of time before he returns? If you had your own encounter with the unexplained, send it in. I'd love to feature your story here on this channel. Until next time, remember, not every nightmare ends when you open your eyes.